So from one of the last videos you would have seen, I replaced the brake pad. I then sorted the handbrake out off camera, where I basically adjusted it because the left side is holding 100% and the right side is holding 0%. This was after I'd changed the center handbrake point piece, and then also, as I stated, changed the pads. And then I looked further under the car and the center section of cable has stretched. So today I'm going to show you how to replace that. Got a nice box here. First, because I'm in a low car, got to get the safety planks out, and then we're going to get underneath and show you what I mean. Now that the car's on the planks, before I jack it up, I'm going to just go inside the car and I'm going to remove the handbrake and just let it loose. Because we're going to be working on the cord, we don't want it nice and tight, we want it loose, and then we can adjust later on. So just to show, the car is not just standing on its own. Safety first. So just using a small jack because I can't be bothered to get the big jack out, just jacking from the center point of the car, center brace on the back, and then I'm going to take this wheel off just to gain better access for the whole cable run across. Right, now that the wheel's off, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a look at the part that we're replacing, which is this handbrake piece that runs through to the center, and the new part that's over there. I'm going to get it out, line them up under the car, and just make sure it's the right part. Even though the website says it's the right part that I've ordered from, you never know. Let's get this open. A lot of excessive packaging. And then hopefully this should be the run of cable that I need. Now I do trust these websites, but with old cars I always like to make sure before I put the work in. So just making sure, as you can see, those bits look correct, bushing area looks correct and everything along those lines. Then there's this mid connecting piece, which again matches up here. So I'm going to run the length and show you the rest of it. So while underneath the car it's going to be difficult to see, so I'll do my best to show. But again, so we're just matching up the sections, and as you can see there, hopefully that looks correctly positioned, and then as we follow all the way through with all the bungs and bushings, it reaches its destination point. Now if you take a look at that stripped cable there, that's exactly why I'm replacing it. But also over here you might not be able to see, there is another stretched section of the cable, so it's not going to last much longer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by removing the first one. There is a bolt on the back side of this little rib here. See if I can show you on there. And they continue throughout. There's a little bung there. And then it will just be feeding the cable through. I'll show you as much as I can step by step, but I'm in a bit of a tricky situation under the car, so you're going to have to bear with me on this one. So I'm going to start by removing this bracket first, just to match them up. And at the meantime also then work on releasing this section of the handbrake portion. So with the first mounting bracket moved, on the bottom of this section here there's a cotter pin, or like a pin system. You have to pull that out and then it should be able to release the pin section of the handbrake that we're replacing. So if you can see my gloves here, all I needed to do was bend this pin flat and pull it through with a pair of pliers, and just using a screwdriver it pulled just out from in between, it's really hard to see, this little point here, which is where the new pieces are attached to. I'll show you after it's removed, just to give a better representation. Now just by using it's hard to film this, just by using a screwdriver and a little tap from a hammer, this pin is going to knock from underneath up. So knocking from the bottom where I'm pointing up on the pin very gently, so that it knocks it up, out and through, and then we can unhook this handbrake section like you can see here, that we'll then be able to fit on, hopefully. Nice and easy. After giving some gentle persuasion, the pin should, I might have to use pliers just to get the rest of it out, should just wiggle out. And then that is what's going to replace, as you can see on the nice shiny part there, this pin is going to go inside there, and then where we were talking about earlier for that little hairpin looking thing, it goes through that hole you can see reflected in the blue. and folds over to secure it. Now this piece has come off. I've just tapped it lightly with, again, just a screwdriver to get it to come through. And then we're going to remove this little clip around the outside. Again, just using a screwdriver just to push slowly, possibly giving it a little bit of a tap with any sort of heavy object or a hammer, just to get the pin to come out correctly. Because it was toughly in there, I had to get my screwdriver and tap it, and then for the other side just used a little lever technique to push it off, and you'll see the pin is just gonna simply slide off nicely. And then I'm going to keep it safely on one of these little magnet trays, which are absolutely amazing to hold your parts. As you can see, if I lost that on the ground here like I have in a previous video, it's really difficult to find. And at the minute I don't have any spares because we're kind of doing this on a budget. So that is this section removed. That's the bracket removed. Now we're just going to trace back underneath all the way through, undoing the bolts. Again, I'll try to show you as best as possible, but it is a very tight gap to the floor because of how low this thing is. And I'm only using the bad jack at the moment, not the low profile. So the next bracket to remove, which is on that line, that one there, is at a pretty difficult angle. So it's just here where my thumb's pointing, and I think it's a 10mm rather than the first, which we used a 12mm for, but I'll let you know if that's incorrect. So the bolts from the bracket that I've just removed were easier to access from under the wheel arch, so it's much easier to get underneath if you're on the floor like me. There was just these two bolts in here that again are going to be reused. These were 10mm, whereas the other one that was on this bracket point here is a 12mm, and 12mm and 10mm run all the way down. Now the next two bolts unfortunately are looking mighty crusty, but it's this metal bracket here and this 10mm that need to come out. And then we're following all the way through where it's just a bung that pops off through that hole there, and we should be able to disconnect the last couple of pins. So this bracket that I've removed was just on here, and then to get this cord out of this hole here, I just had to use a screwdriver just to pry and lever it away. Now we're just going to trace the cable through. Nice and easy, bung in the center, another bung, and then to the centerpiece of the cable where we need to remove some more. With this middle section, as you can see, there's an easy little bung that just pulls off. And then again in the center over there, I'll show you now. With that one removed, it's onto another cotter pin situation where we're just going to pull the pin through and then release it on the handbrake cable side. So I was slightly incorrect about moving this pin. For this one, you just had to angle this cord and the pin out and then slide up. So now that's removed, let me show you the comparison of the two cables. And again, just check your parts before we do anything else. So it's hard to show completely accurately, but brackets are matching up. As you can see, the boot is definitely torn and perished compared to the new one. Brackets and brackets around are getting tired and worn. This section of cord, as you can see, has had better days, as well as your securing pin section. The boot on this one is about to give way compared to the new boot, and this is where the issues are. So you can see here there's a tear in the cable which has stretched the cable, causing me to have to replace this one. Little bung, again nice and hard rather than this which is basically crust. And then as we go to the top, another torn section of the handbrake. And if I were to able to line them up correctly, you'd see that this cable has stretched quite a distance. Therefore, that's why I'm replacing it. So I'm just going to do everything in reverse and get the new one on. Get it back on the car should be nice and easy. So let's do that. And just like that, it's on the car. I wish it was that easy, but it's just replacing the steps, or retracing the steps backwards. So all of the new bracketing is on, it's running through. All that's left to do is adjust the handbrake as we go step by step and see if I can finally get this rotor to hold still. So fingers crossed. After giving a rough adjustment by adjusting these two pieces to stretch the cables out, I'm really hoping that I can pull the handbrake up and see a result of this rotor also not moving. There's a little bit of resistance, which is what I want at the moment. Let's go check out the other side quickly first. So the other side is stiff. It might almost be too stiff, so we'll see when we pull the cable up. Really hope. Otherwise, the last thing that needs replacing on this is the caliper, and I don't want to do that. So now that the cable's all on and the handbrake is up and been adjusted, there is unfortunately still some movement. That's because I need to bleed this caliper, which I'll have to wait for Lex to get home, so then I can crack on with that. And then we should be all good, fingers crossed, for MOT season. Now the wheel's back on, I can lower the car. I won't show the bleeding process because it's a fairly simple bleeding process. I might cover it in another video. But for now, I'll keep updated on my social medias. I hope this is helpful. I'm going to crack on with a couple of other jobs for the MR2. Again, you'll see those more on the social media side rather than YouTube. But yeah, mid-success.